never play evil characters. I can't do it.
I almost always play evil characters unless my
I feel really guilty. Like, I was playing Skyrim and I ran into this shack and there's like a little journal talking and explains why, because the couple that was living there got killed by a dragon, and I felt legitimately sad. I was like, that poor couple got killed by a dragon.
My closest to evil character is I made an assassin for one campaign, but I made her to specifically have a redemption arc where she becomes not evil. And she has now adopted a little gnome, and it's adorable. So she's learning to care for people.
Oh, bless her heart. It's so cute. Oh.
The closest thing to an evil character was in Fallout New Vegas when I played a swordsman who was a cannibal, and that was fun.
You can play a cannibal. Oh, that's awful.
Oh, yes, you can, and it's great.
Yes, it was great. I would fight entire armies, and I would eat them all.
I play like were creatures a lot in D&D stuff. Skinwalkers. I can't wait till he's found. He's asleep right now.
He's not evil though, is he? He wasn't in the last campaign.
Was he? Was he not?
I don't think so.
No, he was chaotic good. Still is, by the way.
Chaotic good is like, I make my own rules, but I'm a nice person.
Exactly.
Well, I'm going to break your rules, but only to help other people, and then I'm going to break your stupid rules because it's fun.
Hmm.
The doing whatever I want is chaotic neutral, really.
Yeah.
Neutral. True neutral.
Right, but chaotic neutral, you don't have to be a nice person.
Yeah.
No, you could be a jerk, but you get to be too much of a jerk and kill for fun, then you're chaotic evil, and then a paladin.
Of course, good does not mean nice.
That's true.
Paladin just...
We'll get into that a bit. I would say, at the very least, a lot of people confuse different evil categories for chaotic neutral. Like, I'll see a lot of, like, it's definitely chaotic neutral, but people think, like, oh, that's an evil person.
Like, I see neutral as, like, they don't necessarily feel obligated to help other people, but they're not going to go around hurting people either, intentionally.
I see chaotic neutral as, like, hey, if I screw that guy over, I'm going to get a lot out of it, and why not, you know?
I feel like if you go around intentionally hurting other people, then that's when you venture into neutral or into evil.
Yeah. Well,
so just kind of like,
And it depends on whether you're lawful evil or neutral evil or chaotic evil. It really depends.
So,
but you know who's chaotic, though?
On to the actual topic. Matt. We were going to talk about polygamy. I'm sorry, we kind of diverted because it was a fun topic, but we were going to talk about polygamy, but we decided to hit something a bit more general because we feel like we cover polygamy pretty fast. So we'll talk about polygamy and a couple other marriage topics, but polygamy is a big one. I'm still in my church storage room. I have not got Wi-Fi for my house yet. Although I do have a nice office, I just don't have Wi-Fi, so I'm in the storage room.
That dream board.
Noodle. What for cool noodle?
Yay! That way, if anyone's attacks you, you can hit them with it.
Yes. Anyway, so we're gonna discuss polygamy, and it'll be a bit different because I'll also engage in this one rather than just mediate. But yeah,
gonna be engaged. Is that to multiple people or just one?
Everyone.
Everyone.
Oh, I'm sorry, we did the homosexual one last week. Just women.
Homosexual polygamy. That's a whole other topic.
Can we do homosexual polygamy?
I think we established that homosexuality was wrong last week. So
I think that's what they call a fraternity. Never mind.
Anyways. Yeah. So, how are you guys feeling about it? I guess, Matt, what do you feel like? Give a very general statement of what you think about polygamy.
Why would you ever want to deal with I have 2 sisters and a mom, and it's too much. That's not, like, I don't even have a wife, and it gets to be too much. Seriously? Ugh. Can't. No, not for me.
I mean, I'm a woman, and I know how difficult I can be. So I can't imagine anybody would want to put up with more than one.
I can just imagine.
I don't even want to put up with more than one of me.
I could just imagine if your boyfriend were off camera, he would just be like, "Can concur."
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure he would. I wouldn't even get mad.
I would. For me, it's an iffy topic because I do think polygamy is wrong, but it's kind of hard to explain because, well, we'll get into it, I guess, when we dig into it. I'm just taking. We'll just say I take the position of it being wrong, and we'll get into more detail. How do you guys? Let's look at examples. Like we have Abraham, David, Solomon, which Solomon can count as a bad person because his polygamy was definitely not good. But Abraham, David, and some other Bible figures who were polygamists. And Abraham was chosen by God. David was the man after God's own heart, and they had multiple wives. How does that work? If it is a sin, how were they living in sin? And he's a man after God's own heart.
I mean, David was also an adulterous murderer. I think that, everybody sins. There's going to be sin. You can't be a person and not sin. So, yeah, polygamy, I could be wrong. I can't think of any place in the Bible where it says don't have multiple wives, only have one wife. But, when you look at it, does anything good ever come out of polygamy?
Well,
there's no... I can't think of a single example in the Bible where it's a good situation. Usually you see one wife is loved while the other is neglected, or one's jealous of the other. Or in the case of Solomon and David, their polygamy, I feel like that kind of drove them to want more, which, drove David to have adultery with Bathsheba. Mm-hmm. Solomon just kept getting more and more wives. It's just never a good situation in the Bible.
Yeah.
It's never shown positively.
He was the wisest man that ever lived, and he had multiple wives. So doesn't that mean that we should? I mean, we should emulate the wisest man ever?
Interesting argument. I guess this brings up the joke we told earlier in our chat. When I was in Zambia, we met a man with 3 wives, and he accepted Jesus, and he put his head in his hands and was crying. He was like, I've made such a mistake, because he thought when he had 3 wives, he would get 3 times the sex. All he got was 3 times the drama, though.
Sounds about right, yeah.
Fairly accurate. I feel really bad for that man 1 week a month.
Oh, poor guy.
Yeah, that's probably when we found him.
Yeah, and I think when you get into other cultures where polygamy is acceptable, it does become a pretty complicated topic.
It does.
Well, and a lot of cultures, at least through history, I'm not specifically talking about Zambia or anything like that because I don't really know Zambia, but a lot of the historical cultures that allow polygamy typically also allow adultery. So either way, you're kind of sleeping around.
And what I would say is if you go to another country and you are converting people who are polygamists, I feel like if they accept God and then you tell them that they need to, get rid of all their wives except for one, I mean, I think that's a sin against the other wives because...
How do you choose?
Right. It's favoritism. And also, that he's providing for these women.
Yeah.
Who knows what kind of situation they're going to be in if he, basically abandons them. So, yeah, it gets really complicated. I don't feel like it would be sinful in that situation for him to keep all of his wives, for the purpose of providing for them and stuff.
Yeah, I think,
but I don't think it should be encouraged in the future.
The nature of it is kind of what I also look at because because generally when polygamy comes up, it's almost always a story of men marrying multiple women and usually not women multiple men, although that does happen. But it's
right.
you know, the husband-wife dynamic, although I guess some feminist Christians would disagree, but they form a team and they're supporting each other. The husband does have headship, but there's still support from the wife. And so when the husband, to me, when the husband has the kind of heart where he has multiple wives, he's putting all of these women below and he's up here.
Okay. I kind of get what you're saying, I think.
Yeah. Basically, like, there's not, the husband is supposed to be the head, but he still has a partnership with his wife. And when he has multiple wives, that's basically putting all these women below you.
Okay, so more like a dictatorship than a partnership at that point.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think it's interesting how I just remembered we talked about this when I took a course on Islam when I was in seminary, and Muhammad was he was a polygamist, and in Islam, polygamy is not a sin, but if you're a polygamist, you have to treat all of your wives exactly equally. You never ever show any kind of favorite in any way. And it's considered impossible to do that, except for, like, you know, Muhammad was a prophet, so he could do it. So it was okay for him. But like anybody else is incapable of showing complete not favoritism. And so it's frowned upon to have multiple wives because they don't think you can accomplish that perfection in a polygamous relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's a really good way to put that.
I don't condone Islam, but I mean, they're not wrong.
Well,
I think there's biblical precedent for that. You look at, you know, Rachel and Leah and
Sarah and Hagar.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of oh goodness, I can't remember. Maybe it was Samuel's mom.
Rhea? No.
I don't remember Samuel's mom name, but like I remember her co-wife would tease her because she couldn't have children and was really mean to her.
Yeah. I mean, Abraham, David, Jacob, Moses, they all had multiple wives.
Yeah, well, and I would also continue that the biblical design for one man, one woman relationship is presented, one, in creation, Adam and Eve, just one man, one woman. And also God's description of his own relationship with humankind. He's the groom, she's the bride. Like, he doesn't, like, he recognizes all of humanity in Christ as one. So.
Yeah, that's presented as the one man, one woman is presented as the ideal for a marriage relationship.
So I totally just tried to Google to find out who you were talking about because I was curious too, and happened upon a website that's a pro-polygamy dating site.
Oh no,
Matt, I need you to make an account. It's for podcast purposes. Make an account.
I will make one on air. We'll do that.
Okay. Did you find out the name of the lady though? Because it's driving me crazy.
Samuel's mom. I totally forgot. I got shocked when I saw this.
Hold up. I got it. I got you. Okay. My Bible's right here. Samuel. Hannah.
Hannah, yes. Hannah and Panini or whatever her name was.
I was actually reading about that the other day. Not like, I skipped the part where Samuel was a kid, but that section. Yeah, I would, the husband-wife relationship, I think it is supposed to be one man, one woman. And also, I guess to get into it a bit more, I think this was also culturally present within the Hebrew and eventual Greek culture, and especially Greek culture. Because when we get to 1 Timothy, at the beginning, Paul lays out the requirements for an elder.
Mm-hmm.
And husband of one wife is in there. It's very important. And so I don't think this was. So imagine here's another Bible story to go with it. When David's son tried to overthrow him, I think it was Absalom.
Yeah.
David fled, but he left several of his wives behind. So Absalom wanted to show his new dominance and rulership. So he literally raped David's wives publicly.
Right.
And when David returned, he put them away, as in he gave them a place to stay and be safe, but he never was with them again. Because to be married and then divorced in that time, you have literally zero rights. So any help you get is by grace. And so David wasn't going to just abandon these women. And
right.
Put away, he still divorced them, but he took care of them anyway.
He's going to make sure they're going to be okay. They don't have to like live on the streets. But and then in the New Testament context, imagine you've just made this church and you just have this guy come in. He knew nothing about Jesus, but now he was all for it. Just gave his life to it. Well, he has like 3 or 4 wives. I mean, what are you going to tell him in a world where women have no rights? That just throw her out to the wolves, let her figure it out.
Yeah. No.
No, you
don't do that.
Like, I've actually met some missionaries who've also argued that the husband can keep all the wives, but he can only be with one of them. The rest he puts away. And I was like, that's awful to the women.
Yeah.
Like,
especially in cultures where children are very important, where women get their value from having children. To take that away from a woman, I think that's wrong.
Yikes.
And so I think they're trying to set a precedent there, not like we want our leaders to represent the values that we hold. So we're not saying that with multiple wives can't know Jesus, but we're saying we don't want them being at the forefront showing us off to the rest of the world, because then it'll everyone else. Okay.
One of those, you're holding your leaders to a higher standard.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I've actually heard the argument that when it's talking about the husband of one wife, it is referring to, and I'm going to kind of butcher this, so you got to stay with me a little bit. You have a man who's not married, and he gets married to his first wife. He gets to be an elder, a deacon, whatever. Then when he gets his second wife, he retires. I've heard that argument. So not that he is doing anything wrong or that there's anything wrong with polygamy, but that when he marries his second wife, he needs to be with his family more, and so he retires from being an elder. So he steps down. And that is an argument I have heard.
I mean, I don't like that argument, but I can kind of see where it's coming from, because Paul, wanted the leaders and elders of the church to be able to commit their time and attention to the church. And, you're going to have to spend time and attention if you have one wife. If you have multiple wives, that's going to take even more time and attention. So, I mean, like, I don't know that I agree. I know that I don't agree with that interpretation, but I can see where that would come from.
Yeah. I would say on another level, I forget which book it is. If you guys remember off the top of your head, I'll look it up either way. That way I can let people know in a second. But when Paul is describing how husbands are to treat their wives and wives their husbands, husbands love your wives like Christ loved the church. Wives always submit and love your husbands.
That's Ephesians.
I don't think it's proper. It's accomplishable for a man to love his wife the way he is called to love her if he has other women he also has to do that with. I don't think you can commit to that. And I think that's another reason, not a direct reason, but I think that's another reason we have this image of Christ and the church as just one being, one body, not as like each of us is an individual bride of Christ. No, the whole body.
No, that'd be weird.
I don't want to be a bride of Christ. I'm okay with being part of the greater whole. I just don't want to be an individual bride. I'm uncomfortable with that.
It's like
fair enough.
On a wedding dress to fit me.
I do want to share this because it came to mind and is probably one of the funniest moments. I went to a conference with a friend, and I didn't know until I came there, but it turned out to be kind of a charismatic conference. Like, they had a prophet come up to speak.
Oh, fun.
Yeah, and the conference was mostly women, and I feel like he knew that, because when he got on stage, he spoke, and he said, I feel the Spirit trying to do something big. I feel that God wants to plant a seed in the womb of your spirits. I was like, I'm so uncomfortable right now. I just want to go home. Like, Jesus, please. I don't want that kind of...
Just take me now, because I can't. What you should have done is raise your hand and be like, "Excuse me, my spirit doesn't have a womb. How is he going to accomplish this now?"
I just want to go home. Anyway.
Oh, goodness.
You just take the wheel because I'm just going to drive while asleep because I can't even dream like this.
I knew what he was trying to say, but I just couldn't get away with like how uncomfortable I felt now. I was like, God, please, no.
Yeah, that's a weird analogy.
Ugh. It's gonna be the most quoted experiences at conferences. Why I don't go to conferences, my new book.
Is that how he became a prophet? Jesus planted a seed in the womb of his spirit.
Really?
Is that a term? I mean,
I've never heard that term. I've heard of planting seeds, but I always thought of like seeds, like corn or something, or wheat.
yeah, seed like
Not babies.
mustard seed. But I'm
mustard seed.
definitely concerned for this man's mental health.
Well, everyone else was super hyped when he said that. They're like, yeah, woo! I was like,
I'm uncomfortable. Yeah, that would bother me.
Jeez, you got a lot of room.
Oh, Mom, he said something about planting a seed in the womb of your spirit. I'm concerned for this man. Malloy was at the concert.
Hey, Matt's mom.
Be concerned, kid.
Wave to the internet, mother.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Aggravating.
But Mom, we're recording. Live on YouTube.
Live recording, actually.
It's okay. She's my mother. If y'all don't like it, you can at me. I just won't read your terrible comments. I mean, I will, and I'll insult you, and it's great. It's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah. So my argument, polygamy, it's so morally great because it is wrong. It is not how God made us to be and how we're supposed to be. But if you're already in a polygamous relationship, the alternative of like, well, now you need to divorce your wife and throw her out is an even worse alternative.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. And I don't know, that whole thing about you can't, yeah, let's use the euphemism. You can't be with your wife if she's not, you could only, like, what is it you said, Christina? Some people were, like, saying they should only be with one wife even if they have multiples. Was it?
Did I say that?
Did that? One of y'all said that.
I didn't say that.
That was me. Missionaries said that they could only know life biblically.
Can only yada, however you say that word.
Biblically know them.
It's really funny. Short segue, but I gotta make it. The word for biblical knowing and the word for one of the words for praise in Hebrew are almost exactly the same. One is yada and the other is yada.
So you could really mess it up if you thought.
Accents matter.
I know they do, but it's really funny that they're so close.
Let us go know the Lord. Oh, I mean praise. God, crap.
I would hate to be the guy that goes to Jerusalem to preach and says
Oh, no.
No, I think it's the word for like yelling and shouting praise or something like that, and it's.
I should know this, but I don't. So.
Yeah. Also, I think on a cultural level, we're in America, so it's easy just to be like, yeah, don't do the polygamy. But if we're expanding the gospel to countries where they're already doing the polygamy, that's one of those situations where we could.
The polygamy.
Yeah, they're doing the polygamy. We could look at. We should probably. I would argue we approach it like Paul, where he was like, they are one of us. They know Christ. It's good, but they are not going to be like the leaders of our church. That's a privilege.
Right.
That people who can actually represent the image. That's why I'm culturally for those watching who travel overseas where they're going to confront this, or even Europe. I've heard of it growing in Europe, especially Eastern Europe.
Yes, it's.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Definitely, like when you're teaching people who have yet to get married, definitely teach monogamy, but don't oppress the people who have multiple wives into
Now here's a thought I want to bring up actually before we go to other stuff. Let's paint a hypothetical situation of like what if one of the multiple wives was like, hey, I want to divorce him because I know he can't love me fully as if I was in a monogamous marriage? What would we say?
Like if the woman wanted a divorce?
Yeah, she was like, she was like, I don't think he can love me as I should be loved as a wife because he has 2 or 3 other wives. And so
Why did she marry him in the first place?
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's a good.
before she knew Jesus.
What?
She didn't know before she knew Jesus.
That it would depend on how it went. If, say, he had 3 wives and then she met Jesus, she should stay married to him, because
Yeah.
I got to find that exact verse, but Paul writes something about if you become a believer, and paraphrased here, sorry. If you become a believer and your spouse isn't, stay with them unless they leave you. If they leave you, then you're good. You're fine. You're faultless.
Right. So that something about the woman could be a light in the household.
Right. Something like that.
Yeah.
Now that said, if they were, say, like, if she was his only wife at the time and she got saved, and then he decided to try to marry another wife, I would say she should be free to divorce him on the basis.
Yeah, I would say if it was that sort of situation, that would almost count as adultery. If she's like, no, I don't want you to do this, and he does it anyway.
Right.
That was just good hypothetical. Actually, this happened when I was 20. And
That was really
you guys can tell me what you think, but this is what happened to me when I was 20, what I did. I went on a trip with my family when I was 20, and we had this waiter who we had every night because we went to the same restaurant for meals. And, you know, I didn't talk to him about Jesus the whole time, but the entire week, God was like, ask him if you can pray for him. I was like a 20-year-old. I was like, no, God, it's awkward. But I finally did it. And he's like, are you a minister? I've been praying for God to send me someone for weeks. I was like, yes, sure. Yeah, kind of.
Sure, I can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
Anyways, so he told me his situation. He spends 10 months of the year out there and then 2 months back home.
Okay.
He is married with a child back home. So only sees her 2 months out of the year. And so it's very normal out there because there are others working. They have relationships on the side. And so he started doing that too. So he had a mistress now. He got his mistress pregnant.
Okay.
And he's like, I don't know what to do. I was like, crap, I've only dated one girl. I've dated one girl. Crap. Anyways, what I ended up telling him was, you need to come clean to your wife, for one. You need to let her know.
Yep.
Yeah.
And you need to take care of her. Unless she chooses just to outright reject you. I explained to him, she has every right to outright reject you and have nothing to do with you, but she might not. You know,
Right.
And you need to take care of the mistress. Like, I'm not saying stay with her. I told them not to stay with her, but you need to take care of her and make sure that child is taken care of.
Yeah.
So that's what I came up with spur of the moment when I was confronted with that.
Yeah, I think that's about the advice I would give, because I mean, you got to deal with the consequences. You can't just pretend you don't have a kid with this other lady, because, you know, it's just your fault.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's what I would say. Don't be with the mistress, but you do need to support your child.
Can you say that again, Matt?
I said, I'm curious how that turned out. I wish we could, like, follow up with that guy.
I tried to keep, like, he gave me his email because he didn't have a cell phone. And we would email occasionally, but then he kind of fell off. So I don't know how it worked out. I mean, I'm hoping it worked out well. I mean, like, after he found out his wife was pregnant, he had this big repentance moment where he was, like, begging God. I did believe him when he told me he did genuinely repent. He just didn't know what the right answer was now that he had dug this hole.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
No. So here's the next topic we're going to cover, because we had several things come up. Is it biblical to have to know your spouse for reasons other than making children? Yes. Anyways, so the argument is actually, I personally heard this from a very, 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 very traditional Catholic family, but you can only have sex with your spouse if it is to make children. And if it is for any other reason, you are sinning and you are lusting after your spouse, which is evil.
I saw that on Facebook today from an anti-Catholic, oddly enough, hardcore.
Oh, really?
Yeah, hardcore Calvinistic Protestant dude. I don't know whether it's Baptist or Presbyterian. I'm not sure, or Anglican or whatever. I don't know.
Crazy Calvinist.
Yes, he is. He's definitely reformed.
Me and Amanda, like I don't know if I said it on the podcast. Me and Amanda are engaged now, and we were together when we met that couple. So I kept like looking at her. I was like, Amanda, this is our future. This is what we must do. And she's like, shut up.
Wait, say that again? You talking about all the kids at your house?
No. We were with old Catholic family. And they said like, only have sex if you're making kids. And Amanda was there with me. I was like, Amanda, this is our future. Yes.
Oh, for a second, I thought you were like, when you went to your house to visit your family, or something, you're like, this is our future, with like 9 kids in your house.
For at least 6 kids, and she's like praying against me.
Oh, no.
That's not a good way to follow your husband's head, lady. You gotta hope she doesn't see this episode. Anyway.
Hey, the Bible says that women will be saved by childbearing, so.
Hey, I'm going to quote that at her.
It's more in there. I don't have an exact reference, but.
Don't quote it until the night of your wedding. After the reception and everything.
Oh, that's a bad idea. Don't do that. Don't do that if you want to have a good honeymoon. Because, yeah. She might just be like, nope.
On the actual topic, it is.
Yeah.
I only heard this from a Catholic. Matt heard it from an anti-Catholic. I think this is. I'm very curious when the anti-sex theology started. I'm pretty sure it has roots in Gnosticism, and like when the Gnostic cults were forming alongside the Christian cults, the Christian cult, soon to be religion,
Christian cults,
because. Literally, there's an entire book in the Old Testament about sex, and then Solomon and his soon-to-be bride are talking about how excited they are to have sex, not kids.
Right, and I think, like, the Bible never presents sex as a bad thing unless it's outside of marriage. And God made it, for couples to be more intimate with each other, not just to make children. There were, you had barren women in the Bible who knew they were barren and, eventually would end up pregnant. So, they were knowing their husbands, even though they assumed they couldn't have children.
I think that particular one is not the greatest example, and only being because even though they knew they were barren and that kind of thing, they were still holding out hope for children. So they were still having sex specifically in a lot of their cases, at least the instances we know of, specifically for children.
Then I think of like Sarah, though, who
Sarah had promised
yes, God had told them that they were going to have a kid, but Sarah didn't believe that. She laughed and she was like, whatever, and then gave him Hagar and was like, hey, just use this kid.
Just use this kid.
Just use this kid. That's the kid that we can use. But I mean, I don't think that means they stopped being intimate. Obviously, they didn't.
I mean, at some point, and he was in his 90s, man.
Now
he was 100. She was 90. He was 100, I think.
You guys can correct me on historical context if I get it wrong, but like I said, I started with Gnostic cults. The Gnostics, I believe they got their philosophy from the Stoics. Anyways, the Gnostics believed everything that physically exists is evil. This laptop I'm doing this from, evil. This, evil. All of it's evil. Just because it's physical. They didn't believe Jesus physically came down. He was just a ghost. Jesus ghost. Because if Jesus physically came down, he'd be evil because he physically exists. Anyways.
I ain't afraid of no ghosts.
So I suspect that this anti-sex stuff originated with them and kind of infiltrated the then Catholic Church.
That's possible. I'm not exactly sure about the historical origination of that, but that sounds likely.
According to our college professor that talked to us about that kind of thing, about Gnosticism, that would be accurate. We love you, Dr. Hicks. I wish I could still find him to talk to him, but he never gets on Facebook. Anyway, but I wonder, and this is going to sound silly, but I mean it in all seriousness, I wonder if that's why, for the most part, Gnosticism has died out, for the most part.
They didn't make any new kids to be Gnostics.
They were only trying to grow their people from the outside, and it's really hard to grow a group when you tell people no sex.
Yeah.
Plus the fact that a lot of them also, from what I understand, still followed old Jewish law, in order to like stave off the sins of the flesh or whatever, as they put it. So they were like, no bacon and no sex. Yeah, you're not gonna get very many converts.
That sounds awful.
It sounds pretty terrible.
I love bacon.
I'm not really a big fan of bacon, but it is delicious once in a while.
I know some sects like SECT would go the opposite way. I doubt any Gnostics, maybe like some heretical Gnostics, but would go the complete opposite direction of that and say the body is completely bad. There's no saving it, so you might as well just let it do whatever it wants.
Hedonist.
And spiritually, just keep your spirit pure, and think about God, I guess. I don't know. But your body doesn't matter because it's doomed anyway. So there's no sense trying to control it.
There were some European tribes and such when Christianity first was spread there. And of course it came out of paganistic beliefs and such. But when they were first converted, they were using orgies as worship.
I don't think that's a good thing.
I didn't say it was. I'm saying
Personally.
it was. So you've got the spectrum here. And I think the answer is somewhere in the middle with one wife. That's the middle. That's what I'm calling the middle here.
Yeah.
So let me do this too. I'm going to bring this up because if you ever argue with ignorant people on the internet about the Bible, they will bring up this verse. And it's because okay, so what people do is, I wish we could have it put on the screen, a little text. What they Google is God is stupid, STOOPID, and then they just copy paste whatever they find. Anyways, the Bible verse they do is Genesis 38, verse 9. But Onan knew that the child would not be his. So whenever he slept with his brother's wife, he spilled his seed on the ground to keep from providing offspring for his brother. This is relevant. This one will come up if you ever argue with people on the internet. And I'm helping out our internet warriors. If you actually read it in context, I don't even have to delve into it for you.
Yeah. This was the I don't remember what it's called, but where your husband dies, and so you become your husband's brother's wife to bear children, but they still keep they're considered legally as coming from the line of your husband in order to keep his inheritance in the family.
But it literally
the context for that.
If you just read the verses, it literally says what was happening before, what he did, and why he died for it. Because after that, he literally gets struck down by God.
If you send me the link, I can throw it up so the viewers can actually see it.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'll just throw you this. It's in New International Version, so forgive me for my sins.
I don't think that's a sin that can be forgiven.
I know.
Particular verse you want thrown up?
Let's do verse 9. Verse 9 is the one they're always going on about.
Okay.
I feel awkward talking about this topic, but it's literally in the Bible. I'm just quoting the Bible, so, I guess I can't be that heretical.
All right, 1 second. I'm throwing it up here.
Keyboard order.
But you look at the context of that verse. It's not talking. The Lord wasn't displeased with him because for this, for only that he did not want to have children with this woman.
Mm.
He wasn't having sex with her for pleasure. He was having sex with her out of obligation, which he did not want to fulfill. So in intentionally not getting her pregnant, he was not only sinning against God, but also Tamar and her late husband. And basically his family.
Yes, if you're on the internet long enough, this will be brought up. You think after because I've been seeing people do this for maybe more than 10 years since I've gotten on the internet. You think they would learn by now that this is not a valid argument. I've always thought, so let's pretend you Googled something and you found this amazing information and you're like, wow, this proves this over 2,000-year-old religion. Wow. I just found this information. Why has no one else seen this? Maybe because it's already been answered and you're wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
Looking at you, New Age mystics.
Yeah. I'm not on the board. I'm not on the train. There are people who think if you have a new idea at all, you're immediately wrong. I'm not on that hype train, but I am on the train of if you have discovered something entirely new and unique, it's probably not new and unique, and you should research.
Yeah.
That idea.
Yeah, that passage is
particularly heresy.
There's just so much wrong with what's going on in that passage that you can't point to it and say, oh, this very, very specific thing is why he was killed. No, he was killed because he was being a bad person in general.
Mm-hmm. So let's see. Matt brought up something in the chat we also wanted to talk about. Actually, Matt, you want to introduce it? I feel like you do better.
Oh, I'd love to. Okay, so I was reading this post. Oddly enough, I think it's by the same person. Posted this video thing that some pastor did. Whatever, it doesn't matter. As did the other post I was talking about earlier. But there's a pastor whose name I can't remember off the top of my head. I could look it up, but said that if a man, and he specified man several times, so he's not talking about women here, but if a man is not married by the time he is 23, he is in sin, except in very specific circumstances. So, those circumstances he gave were those who were intended to live completely celibate lives, things like that. But he also said that was less than 1% of the population of the planet, as far as he's concerned, and things like that. So, but if you're not married by the time you're 23, you are living in sin until you get married.
Can I bring up one more passage I wanted to say about the previous topic that I just remembered?
Yeah.
Okay. I wish I thought of it sooner because I would have found a reference for it, but I believe it's Paul in the New Testament talking about husband and wife and how they shouldn't withhold sex from each other because of similar to this topic that we're talking about now, so that their partner doesn't become lustful. And it says the only time that they should refuse to have sex is when they agree on a specified time for fasting and prayer.
If I may, I have that.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so
1 Corinthians 7:5, it says, "Do not deprive one another, except by mutual consent for a limited time, so that you may devote yourselves to prayer. Then come together again, so that Satan will not tempt you through your lack of self-control."
the best Bible verse ever.
Right, and that verse isn't talking about having children. It's talking about, controlling physical needs.
Just as important is 7:4, the verse right before it, which is in the same kind of thing. It says, first of all, the heading is the principles of marriage of this whole section. But 4 says the wife does not have authority over her own body, but the husband. Likewise, the husband does not have authority over his own body, but the wife. Do not deprive one another, blah, 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 blah. So
there's a lot in there too, and God's design for us, because long after a woman's body loses the ability to produce eggs, fertile eggs, she can, the sexual desires stay the same. For some, they even go up. There's level of biology there. I don't think God kind of slipped up on that one. But we were doing that. So
yeah, God doesn't create while drunk. He understands what he's doing.
Exactly.
So to repeat what Matt brought up, where we were going to.
My bad.
The economy is good. Like it's good that we're covering everything. So it was an argument that it is a sin for a man to remain unmarried. I think you said from 23 on, or starting at 23. What?
He said the way that it was worded was if they're not married by 23.
Right.
Except in specific circumstances, such as lifelong celibacy, somebody who's called to that, or long-term missionary work that precludes them from getting married. But by then they should be engaged and married when they get back to.
I just think that's so dumb.
Well, I would first start off by saying I don't believe someone's called to lifelong celibacy if they still have very active sexual desires.
Well, neither did that. That's what he was saying.
My first question when hearing that argument is, where did you get the number 23?
Because his thing
why
was,
23?
By 23, you're out of college, you're an adult, you should have a job. That was what he put up. You should have a decent.
So he's saying that rule is cultural then.
Yeah, Jewish men got married at 30, didn't they?
No.
Because it doesn't matter what culture. All cultures are going to have different levels of when
Last I checked, I could be wrong.
In some cultures, you're not going to go to college. So, should you get married earlier in that context? Like, as soon as you can support yourself? I feel like you start lusting definitely before that. So why not just get married right after puberty if that's a concern? Like, that's just a weird number. Like, I don't know.
Have an arranged marriage 2 years before puberty, so you don't even have to deal with it ever.
There you go. Yeah.
There you go.
Actually,
you never have to worry about lusting because
one of my big
you're ready to go.
Just get married at 9. As long as you're both 9. Let's not bring adults in.
I think the older generation of the church, one of my beefs with them is that they have a tendency to push youth, like the younger generation, into earlier fast marriages. It goes disastrously. I think the biggest example I think of, which a lot of people disagree with me on this one, it's fine. But if a young couple has premarital sex and one gets pregnant, you think, well, you got to marry her. And I've seen a lot of divorces result from that because, we weren't that serious and she got pregnant. Now we're married. Oh,
right.
God.
Do you really want to marry someone who got you pregnant outside of wedlock? Stop and think about that for a minute.
Obviously,
probably not.
To begin with.
But we would see these older people be like, well, now you have to marry them. You have to.
Right. Yeah. I think that's a bad situation there. If you say, yeah, you should marry this guy that got you pregnant. Duh. He doesn't sound like a good guy in the first place.
Yeah. So, I think his point was just totally cultural to begin with. I mean.
Oh yeah, definitely. Because that's a weird number.
A full reading of the text to you guys, of course, but he did say that he was speaking for Americans for places where you got a job and became independent from your parents earlier, that the age should be earlier. For places that one of the things that he said would push it past is if you are, say you're going to be a long-term missionary, like I said, that if you were engaged and y'all didn't have time between the beginning of you having to go and whatever, you could, when you got time to come back, you'd get married and then she'd go with you, or she would get whatever in order and then move out there and then you get married wherever you're at.
Really popular.
Oddly enough, specifically did not preclude college. He said, and I'm going to quote here, if you are called to be the wife, and he was really referring to men and women, although he didn't really call women out specifically except right here. If you are called to be the wife of a doctor, you can step into that calling by being a wife of a med student. So he didn't preclude college as a reason to put it off.
His thing's entirely
weird.
I bet he's very popular in that group.
No, absolutely not.
I just feel like it doesn't matter.
Even in the groups I'm in where they're hardcore, get married early, obviously, love the person, but get married early in life so you can have all the children you can, blah, 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 blah. They ripped this dude to shreds, and it was really funny.
I just feel like his point, it doesn't make sense to me because he's saying, oh, you should get married at this age because of this. Oh, but these circumstances you can get married. These circumstances you can get married sooner or later, whatever.
I think it's
like
kind of
biologically, like the urges aren't like it's not gonna be different, you know. So I feel like to say it's a sin to do this unless it's like this circumstance. I don't know. I just
manipulation.
that's weird.
Like, I think it's just the result of people having a really bad, out of context reading of the Sermon on the Mount. Because Christ is speaking to this crowd, and he's like saying, don't commit adultery, don't murder. But he's saying, if you hate your brother, you've already committed murder in your heart. If you've looked at a woman with lust, you've already committed adultery with her. He wasn't saying, like, hey, clean up your mind. He was literally saying, you are totally incapable of becoming clean on your own.
Right.
And so we don't like argue for 13-year-old boys to go get married now that they've hit puberty. Like, we know that would be very bad.
Yeah.
So
work in a coal mine and make money for your family.
it's just taking what he was trying to say out of its appropriate context. He was saying that, like, no. The standard is not behavior. The standard is the heart, and you cannot fix the heart on your own.
And I also think that's really putting God in a box if you're saying, oh, you got to be married by this age or you're sinning. God can give people self-control. Like, I'm 27, not married, and I feel like that's fine for me. That works for me. I mean, my boyfriend's 27 as well, and we're honestly not in any hurry because we're self-controlled people. For some people, like, I know a lot of people, they want to get married early, and, you know, there's nothing wrong with getting married early, especially if you feel like you can't control yourself. You know, by all means, Paul says, you know, if you can't control yourself, get married. Yeah, okay. But, I mean, God doesn't make everybody exactly the same. He gives some people self-control so they can handle it. And I think, you know, if he wants you to wait, he's going to give you that self-control, and you need to trust him to do that. And if you say, oh, nope, you got to get married by 23, it's kind of like saying, well, God can't give you self-control past this mark, so you better do something yourself to fix it, because God's going to stop giving you self-control. You know, that's just kind of what it seems to me, like the argument saying.
It kind of connects to our last discussion about homosexuality, because we did talk about, like, one of the things about celibacy being a deal, but then they still have to deal with temptation a lot of times. And so it's unfair to put them in that area, but then say, like, heterosexual people can't wait. They need to go and get married now. Yeah,
that's a good point. That's a good point. Because you're not going to say, like, oh, you're homosexual, better get married so you don't lust. No.
It was just like, you should take one for the team and get married to a woman so you don't lust anymore.
That's just a bad idea.
Well, that's a horrible decision.
All around, like, for everybody.
Everybody is pained by this.
Yeah. There's no circumstance. Okay, I'm not going to say there's no circumstance, but there's a slim chance that that's going to go well. God can do anything, but don't test him.
What we have learned today: go out and get as many wives as possible. Wives can only have one husband, though.
As early as you possibly can.
Only have relations to make children. Get married early, as often as early as you can.
If you don't have 6 wives by the time you're 15, you're not doing it right.
Anyways, yeah, I feel like
do all these things if you want all of the drama, guys.
All of the drama.
All of the drama. Because that's what you're gonna get.
Yeah, I feel like we covered things well. Any final thoughts before we depart?
No, actually, I think this one doesn't need final thoughts. I think we pretty well covered everything.
I think we're good, yeah.
Yeah. You guys know what to do, viewers. Get the wives. Wives, only one husband, though.
Send me your hate mail.
Or safe through childbearing. Have tons of them. Go team.
It takes a village to raise a child, so why not get married to a bunch of women? Create your own village.
The perfect thing is, like, if anyone ever wanted to make an attack on me in the future, they could just clip little segments of this out and put it, like, as an attack video. Like, look at what this man says.
They could have done it with the last several, too. I don't think there's been a video that they couldn't do that with.
Context matters, people.
Creative editing with our videos could pretty well ruin us
It's gonna ruin all of us.
for the rest of our lives.
And we're all in ministry. Oh no.
Anyways,
We
peace,
just gotta
everybody.
find the right church that doesn't care what we say. So.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
Bye.